Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Apple Box Chronicles. My name is Peyton Buto.
And I'm Adryon Thomas.
And today on the ABCs, we are taking you from A to Z on live-action remakes, I guess. How to Train Your Dragon and Lilo and Stitch just came out, and we were thinking we should make an episode on the concept of live-action remakes, go into the history, look at the people involved, what we think is good about them. Spoiler alert, it's very little. What we think is not so great about them, and what we think constructively studios should be doing differently if they're really going to try and profit off of their old IP so much. So we've put together this kind of idea that we have on what live-action remakes should look like if they have to exist, which it seems like there's no stopping them. So, if there's any executives witnessing this episode, if there's any executives listening, maybe you could, just take this up the ladder. You know what I mean? These two guys on the couch, we know what we're talking about. Yeah,
we've seen movies and we know what we're talking about.
We're the guys giving you money.
Yeah,
listen to us. Don't listen to the box office numbers for Lilo and Stitch. Listen to us instead.
Yeah, there's definitely several types of remakes as well that we've figured out. So, and these two that we're going to talk about are two very different types of remakes that they've been putting out lately.
That's right. So we have two very different kinds of live-action remakes that have come out recently, and then there's also another kind which we'll get into as well that you've definitely seen a lot of. So, as far as these two films, How to Train Your Dragon 2025 and Lilo and Stitch 2025, we saw both of these in the same day. I saw Lilo and Stitch before you. I actually did the brave thing and went and watched it again. I was too nice the first time, in my opinion. But what did you think of these movies?
They're fine. Like I think I liked How to Train Your Dragon like a little better than Lilo and Stitch because like How to Train Your Dragon, the original animated, is just so good. Like the fact
both of them are pretty good.
Well, the original for both of them are pretty good, but How to Train Your Dragon, the original, just in itself is such a great movie that if they do basically a shot-for-shot remake of it, you're just recreating a great movie. It's just
exactly. It's a hard one to really hate because it's like, well, kind of just watching the same thing.
Yeah,
it's a little worse, but it is still a great story on the foundation.
It's unnecessary because if you have a great movie, why would you just recreate it? You already have the original. It's so unnecessary.
Exactly.
And on the other hand, you have something like Lilo and Stitch, which is, again, the original is so great. There's no real need to remake it, but then they do remake it, and they make big changes to the themes of the original movie.
Yeah. It's interesting, to say the least, that they decided to switch things up. Well, I guess we can get into it a little bit. If you've seen the original Lilo and Stitch, you would know exactly what happens. The new one introduces new elements to that in terms of the relationship between Lilo and her sister Nani, and the way that their dynamic is always under threat of them being separated by the foster care system. And throughout the remake, that is present as well. But the remake introduces new elements to the story to allow for basically a really easy conclusion where everyone gets exactly what they want, except it introduces new things that Nani wants that weren't in the original film for purposes that I can only theorize about. And so it's really weird that they kind of introduce a problem and then solve it by doing something that is completely different from what the original would do.
Yeah. And it's just interesting that they just went in that direction. I wonder what the reaction would have been for this movie if it did what How to Train Your Dragon did and just completely remade the movie like shot for shot.
Well, what's interesting about that is that the reaction for Lilo and Stitch, I mean, amongst maybe some diehard fans of the original film, and a lot of people I've spoken to have said it's fucking awful.
Yeah.
But in terms of
general consensus,
general audiences, it has, I think, like a 60 or 70% on Rotten Tomatoes. I've seen a lot of people enjoy it. In fact, before it came out, I remember telling you, people are saying that Lilo and Stitch is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Got me excited because it's directed by Dean Fleischer Camp, who directed Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, and I think he's pretty creative, and he can deal with like familial themes and intimacy in his films pretty well, and he kind of has this odd sense of humor with the stuff that he's made, and I thought, okay, maybe they let him do something interesting with it. No, they didn't. I don't blame him.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I felt like I was tricked, bro. Like, when I went to this movie, I was like, I thought it was going to be okay, but I guess not. And I really tried. I really tried to rationalize it all in my head, and I just don't like it.
Yeah, it's, again, unnecessary. And I think that's the problem that we've come across with these live-action remakes, is that they're just so unnecessary. And if you remake it, like, exactly the way it is, you have this problem that, you're just rewatching the same exact movie as the original. And then you have the other problem of, if you change too much, then you're changing the ideas of the original, and you're kind of morphing it into something new. And if you're going to morph it into something new, why don't you just do something original?
Right. So that's our previous episode was actually on our segment called Fixer Uppers, where we talk about movies that we actually believe do need remakes. And we talked about Highlander, which is a movie that's very flawed but has a lot of potential.
Yeah.
We went over those things. With these stories, these are tried and true beloved films. So really, they can't lose if they just make the same thing over again, because a lot of people are loving that How to Train Your Dragon film for basically that reason. They're like, oh, I got to see this story that I love and these characters that I love in live action, and it's, in some ways there's like a kind of a novelty to that. But in terms of remaking so many beloved stories, it's, we run into kind of that tightrope between the two things you were talking about and between these two movies. But if you were to remake something way like lower on popularity and much more, I guess, niche, and bring that to a more a grander populace, you know what I mean? That could have way more merit, because you're actually introducing something to a new audience. Because a lot of people say, oh, this is Lilo and Stitch for a new generation. And it's like, well, yeah, but Lilo and Stitch for a new generation should just be Lilo and Stitch, because films are timeless.
Yeah.
That is a timeless movie. That is a unique piece of art that can stand the test of time, and has. So if people want to show Lilo and Stitch to their kids, they still can in 2025. We don't need to give them an inferior version of the movie. That's a disservice to those kids, in my opinion.
Yeah. And it sucks, because people continue to go to these movies and like show the studios that this is something that they can continue to do. And it's crazy, because when you think of Disney, you would at first assume that, all these are Disney originals, but nothing is original. None of these stories.
Almost nothing. I would say. I don't want to make that statement, because I would have to like look through a bunch of shit and see if we're actually right about that.
Look at Disney's slate, all their like big IP is based off of an older story or an older fable or Shakespeare.
Yes, exactly.
And we act like Disney owns those rights, those ideas, but they don't.
Well, they've found a way to reinterpret those stories into a completely new tone, a completely new context. Maybe, expand them a lot.
They rebranded them as their own.
Yeah, so they become these family films that everyone knows them as. So they found a way to make something that became so iconic and became the kind of chief thing that you think of when you think of the Lion King. Honestly, I think there's quite a few people who, if you showed them Hamlet, they would think this is just like Lion King.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't read it as the other way around.
Yeah.
Initially, I mean, even if intellectually they understand that that Hamlet came first.
Yeah.
But it's like, oh, this is where Lion King comes from. I think there is probably some people who don't actually recognize that it's directly pulled from Shakespeare, or that have not really read. I mean, I'm one of these people that haven't really read any of the Brothers Grimm fairy tales, but you hear about them from time to time. They're darker versions with, like, I think a more exposed kind of like, with like a more kind of exposed like moral center that's very cautionary. They're a lot more cautionary in nature, and they're a lot less happy.
Yeah, they're very dark, and they're more to scare children into doing the right things rather than like teach them a lesson.
They're kind of like the people in Pinocchio that turn the kids into donkeys.
Yeah.
So we have this kind of format that Disney has done where they've taken these stories and they've made the most popular versions of them through their lens and their style in a lot of these 2D films that they made back in the day. And then now we're seeing an interesting inverse kind of happen almost, where a lot of these IPs that have become public domain that we're so used to seeing Disney handle are becoming these slasher movies, these Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey kind of. I forget some of the other ones. There's a Peter Pan one.
There's a Peter Pan one. I think they're trying to do a Bambi one.
Right,
a Pinocchio one.
Yeah. So, and there was a Screamboat Willie as well.
Yeah.
Which apparently I heard was actually pretty fun. It has David Howard Thornton in it. So, hell
yeah.
But
I don't know. These movies haven't been good so far.
Well, but that one's not by the same people.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we have all of these different films under that umbrella that are kind of, they're taking the known tones of these stories, which are kind of more family friendly and more for all ages and happier, and they're just making them super dark and gory and gruesome as a way of kind of, juxtaposing it, subverting it, just being like, oh, look at this, it's like Winnie the Pooh, but he's like Michael Myers. And in my opinion, like you said, they're not very good, but they're trying to basically take it and create a new novelty of like, what if Bambi was killing people? Isn't that crazy? And they turn these guys into like vengeful creatures. There's not like a moral center to these movies.
No.
They are simply just for that novelty alone. And so they grow really stale really fast.
Yeah, because, like we were saying, the original like base story, like the Brothers Grimm, was made to scare kids into doing the right thing. Whether or not that's a good idea or not to tell children, that's what it was for back in the day. And then, Disney Disneyfied it and made it more like lesson learning and like, oh, this is what little kids should learn to do. And instead of scaring them, it's more like teaching them. And it kind of goes into one direction. But then the way these like gory remakes is like they're adding back in the scare, but they're taking away the lesson altogether. And it's completely it's just subverting what we know about these stories in ways that aren't creatively intelligent, I guess,
or like just don't have a lot of creative integrity. I agree. I think that it's very interesting to just see how the reason we bring these up is that things can get reinterpreted so many times to where it's like it's like, at least when Disney reinterpreted it, they kept the kind of the themes, the morals, the lessons are still there, and they're kind of putting their own creative spin on it. With this one, it's like, you could say they're putting their own creative spin on it, but they're just lessening it. It's almost like some of the Disney live action remakes where you just kind of take away what the reader or the viewer would connect with in the story in the first place, for the sake of just attempting to profit off of the IP, the character, and the novelty, and the aesthetic of it, maybe. And that's kind of what the live-action remakes do in some cases. I'm not saying those are as bad as the Winnie the Pooh films or that, or the other way around, right? I mean, we could argue about that, but that's not really the point. It's just like, it's just interesting how much reinterpretation and remakes, when done with, I guess, less integrity in their intention, can take away so much.
Well, I think the biggest problem is that they're using kind of like this MCU template where you have these producers who are just basically hiring these small directors who show promise but are also not powerful enough to like push back, and they hire these directors and these writers to just come on, redo the original, and they could like basically tell them what to do along the way and be like, okay, so because this is a remake, we want to change this thing about it, but to change that thing about it also means we have to change basically what the movie is about.
There's just so many variables that you're changing, and what I found so baffling about the Lilo and Stitch remake, as a good example of this, is that they have all of these different things that follow along with the original pretty closely, that feel completely counterproductive to the new stuff that they're trying to do, and they kind of just try to weave that in. It doesn't really work. It doesn't really fit alongside the original narrative, because what you're doing is you're telling a story with essentially, you're putting a spin on the moral center of the story, which doesn't. If you wanted to do that, why didn't you just make a new movie that could have worked in that in that thing's favor? Instead, they're just like, it's like they're just doing something new for the sake of doing something new with an existing IP, because they know that they just want to profit off of it again.
And when we were talking about this segment, we kind of figured out that there's several categories of the remakes that are out there currently, and we've kind of put them into 4 different like rankings or types. For instance, we have the copy and paste, which is basically you're just remaking shot for shot the original movie, kind of like the How to Train Your Dragon that just came out.
I would like to point out, when I reviewed that film on my TikTok page, I did get a comment saying, well, there is this new stuff, they kind of elaborate on the origins of some of the side characters. They embellish a little bit about one of the supporting characters has a running gag where his father doesn't like him, and it's really funny. And yes, those are new things that they added to the story. And I would like to also say that is the same director and writer as the original film, which is great, but it's more of a, if it had to be done anyway, if you were going to make it anyway, it might as well be me sort of approach, which is why it's so similar, and there's very little changes to it. I will say they are going to make a sequel to that film probably, and I think that will maybe expand on some of that new stuff. But for now, nothing substantial really sets it apart from the original.
No, that's why it's so weird, because yes, it's a good movie, but it's only it only feels like a good movie because it's based shot for shot from an actual good, great movie.
If someone watched that one first, I could see them liking it.
Yeah. And we also get, the Lion King remake, which they call a live action remake, but it's still animated.
Still very much computer animated.
It's still animated.
In every way.
There's also the embellished remake, which is it's very close to what the original was, but they're changing these certain themes or these certain character arcs or something within the lines of the movie, which just kind of gives it a little bit of a difference from the original. But sometimes it works. A lot of the times it doesn't really work out.
I actually think that those films are very hit or miss. It has some of the worst offenders, but then there's a couple in there that I think are all right.
Yeah. Like we mentioned, Lilo and Stitch, it changes a lot of the themes that the original movie was going for.
Yeah.
That just morphs the entire movie into something kind of different. We also have Mulan, which we both think is
we'll get into it.
Yeah.
We'll get into it.
But then they also did Aladdin, which was kind of fine. It was all right. And then after that, we also have this new interpretation, this this different version of that story. Like
often a story about a supporting character that's being put into center focus, or a sequel or a prequel.
Yeah.
Right? These are arguably the most interesting, even if they're not always the best ones.
Yeah, I agree. Like Alice in Wonderland, the Tim Burton remake.
I like that movie.
I enjoyed it. There's nostalgia in it for me. For sure.
Me too. Like I went through a phase. I was obsessed with it. It was the first Blu-ray I ever bought. I still have it's on the shelf behind me, and I still have on the disc, my initials are on it because I brought it to school to watch with the class.
That's cool.
I love that movie.
That was your. I didn't know. I didn't think
very
I
first one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like obviously I had like family DVDs and stuff, but like Blu-ray that I wanted that was mine, I was like, I need that.
Yeah.
And we didn't even have a Blu-ray player. We would only use the DVD that was included. And then when I went to my uncle's house and he had a Blu-ray player, I popped in the Blu-ray and I was like, wait, there's like special features and games on this shit.
Yeah.
What have I been missing? I ought to pop that in one of these days. Anyway.
That's true. But yeah, we also have like you said, kind of more in line, like kind of like based on characters rather than stories like Cruella and Maleficent. Which is kind of show like a different point of view of some of the characters from the original movies.
Right.
And then finally we have the sequel to the remake, or the prequel to the remake, which is an additional movie based in the world of that remake rather than the original.
Right. So this is something that I thought was interesting, that they might be kind of just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks with a lot of these remakes of the original films. But then the ones that do really well, like Lion King, which made $1 billion, you can make the Mufasa movie that just came out last year. And you can make Alice Through the Looking Glass, because I know Alice in Wonderland was pretty successful as well. Yeah. Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, Snow White and the Huntsman, of course, the upcoming How to Train Your Dragon 2, which I'm sure will get made.
Yeah.
Those things, it's like, Disney is kind of doing what they did back in the day, where you have Aladdin, but then you have Aladdin 2 and 3. There is a Lilo and Stitch 2. There's a Mulan 2. These are not really popular films, but if they're able to remake the originals, give it a new visual continuity, they can then carry that visual continuity into a new film to try to make more money off that IP. And I mean, if they're making a brand new sequel, I guess it automatically has more integrity than the remake. Like Mufasa, I think, is a way better movie than The Lion King 2019 by default.
Honestly, I think we might have a Star Wars situation on our hands. Like the Star Wars sequels. So, like how Force Awakens was very similar to A New Hope. Like, almost beat for beat in terms of, like, plot line. And just to kind of rake in, like, the hype.
And to butter you up.
And then the sequel, very different from that first movie, very different, throwing new ideas at the wall. And maybe that could happen with these remakes. They have these sequels that are just very different from what we know and are used to.
Yeah, I hope How to Train Your Dragon 2 is just like kind of has completely some new different stuff, but it's by the same guy, so.
But that might challenge a lot of viewers, because a lot of viewers these days are they don't think outside the box. They just want what they want, and they're going to be like, this is awful. And because the reaction's going to be so bad and the studios are so hasty, they're ready in production for like the third movie, and they're like, oh God, we got to change all these things that we've done.
Mufasa would never do that.
And then you're going to have character. The Rise of Skywalker, where like the third movie is even worse, or like even different, trying to go back to the original, and it's going to suck. And we're going to have this kind of loop of sucky sequels.
That's possible. I mean, again, these are hit or miss too. All of these are. Mufasa, I thought it was fine. I didn't really like it for several reasons. Alice Through the Looking Glass, I remember, was pretty bad.
I didn't see that
in my opinion. I would have to watch it again. I saw it in theaters, and so I wasn't in the same place.
Yeah.
In terms of cinematic consumption, like I just didn't view movies in the same way. Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, didn't see it. Snow White and the Huntsman, did not see it. So, yeah, those are the four categories of remakes. Adrian, which ones stand out to you amongst the pack? Like, what are your kind of remakes where you're like, okay, they did a decent job with that one?
For me, in terms of like the Disney ones, I did like the Jungle Book. That was like kind of earlier on with
Yeah, people hadn't soured on it quite yet.
yeah, no, I think Jon Favreau really handled that one really well because you could still see like the color and the characters in these animals, and it just felt very adventurous. And the adaptation, like you could use a lot. Like one of our roommates was talking about, we were talking about this with him, and he was like, you could utilize a lot with the original movie because it's so short and sweet that you could, if you're gonna like branch it out a bit into live action, it really works well.
Yeah, it's almost like the simpler the better.
Yeah.
Once you get to a movie that's, in my opinion, it is kind of delicate in the way that it handles its topics, like Lilo and Stitch,
Yeah.
then that's when you can really mess it up.
Yeah. But yeah, I liked the Jungle Book. I also liked the Cinderella and the Beauty and the Beast remakes. I thought they were different enough, but also you got the same usual, Disney version of them. I also didn't mind the How to Train Your Dragon one that just recently came out. Again, it is weird because it is basically just watching the animated version translated completely into live action. But then you still get the same movie, and it's a good movie. So it's a weird balance that I don't think I'm used to yet.
Yeah, I hope we never have to get used to that.
I know.
So I thought that one was okay. Beauty and the Beast, I remember thinking it was all right, but again, it's been a while. I haven't seen the other two you mentioned. For me, and I know you haven't seen this one, the best one is The Little Mermaid, in my opinion, because that film, again, like you were saying with Jungle Book, I mean, it's really short. It's like kind of simple in the original film, but in this one, you have the Prince Eric character in the original movie, which is kind of a blank slate. You really get to, flesh him out a little bit in the newer one. And then there's a whole section of that movie where it becomes like a rom-com where they're kind of learning each other, and they're starting to like each other while Ariel is on land and she can't speak. So you kind of have this gimmicky rom-com going on. There's definitely parts of that movie that were a misfire in my opinion, like that Aquafina song that's in there. Otherwise, though, I actually kind of liked that one. I would even watch that one again just to see how I feel about it now that it's been a year or two.
Yeah.
And then Aladdin, I probably going back wouldn't like it as much now, but Aladdin is probably the Disney original film that I saw the most times when I was younger. It wasn't my favorite one, but my sister was obsessed with it. So we always had that DVD playing.
I honestly only saw it a few times.
I've seen Aladdin maybe like 50 times. It's crazy. So I do quite like that movie.
The remake was alright.
I love the original, but the remake is it's fine. I have a little bit of nostalgia for it because it was a movie when I was working in a theater when it came out. I saw it at a midnight screening, like an employee screening. It was the first midnight screening I ever watched with my now girlfriend of 6 years at the time. She, we weren't together yet. She had just, we met there. She had just kind of started working there. And I made because it's a private screening, I made a joke during the movie that nobody but her laughed at, and we both laughed at it for like 5 minutes straight. And I was like, I got this. So
that's cute.
So yeah, I have a cute memory from Aladdin, but it's all right. It's an all right movie. And then of course I love Alice in Wonderland, as I said.
Yeah, I also
weirdly saw
movie.
Christopher Robin I think 3 times in the theater because I think I was just bored.
Haven't seen it.
I just love Ewan McGregor. I think he's a warm screen presence. The animals in that shit are cute as hell.
Maybe I should watch it.
I mean, I don't think that one's that bad, really, because it's like, it's mostly, I think, a newish story, and it's really sweet. I like that movie. fucking sue me. How to Train Your Dragon is okay. Like we said, I kind of feel the same way as you about it. I would give it like a 5 out of 10, like right out down the middle, because it's like, how do I even? It's like, I liked watching it, but I liked watching it because it was the same story.
Yeah. Now let's talk about the worst offenders here. What really irks you?
Mulan.
Mulan's bad.
Dude. So this is what we're talking about when we say they just didn't understand or they didn't care for what was special about it.
Yeah.
Like, they literally, from the opening scene in that film,
they gave her superpowers.
Yeah, essentially. I don't want to be hyperbolic about it, but they do. They narrate about how she has this chi in her DNA or whatever that lets her do amazing things. And that is just like, well...
That's not what the movie's about.
It's also just it's like, oh yeah, this woman can be such a great warrior because she just happened to be born with this ability. It's like not through overcoming adversity or any sort of perseverance or actual strength of character.
Yeah.
No, she just has this. Like, I just think that's ridiculous.
It's such a bland movie too. Like, I can't remember much of it. Like,
the editing is awful. Yeah, it's also just kind of offensive. It's like, well, it caters to people who, I guess, watch like the newer Star Wars movies and are like, oh, Rey couldn't do all that. You know, she has to be related to somebody important to be able to do all that. That sort of thing. It's like it has to, in order for it to make sense that she could do all that, it has to kind of have that kind of bloodline or that legacy or that cheat code to kind of like support it. I think that's ridiculous. It's not what Mulan's about.
Yeah.
It's a bad movie.
Yeah, no, I don't care to go back to it.
Yeah.
Then we have like movies like Pan, which is like just a total reinvention of the world and the character, and it's also like an origin story, I guess. And
sort of, yeah.
It's just not good. Like,
no, you watched that one recently.
Yeah.
I have like a weird hatred for it. I just remember seeing it and just being so confused and baffled when I was younger and I watched it. I love Joe Wright, the director. Really unfortunate.
Yeah, it just, I don't feel like they were adding anything to it.
Like, I like Garrett Hedlund, or
yeah,
the guy from Tron Legacy.
He
like
plays
him.
Captain Hook, but like, why? Like, they don't really explain all that much about. Like, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, what they're trying to do.
I think it's like, it has some like Baz Luhrmann-y things about it, where like you have the pirates singing Nirvana,
yeah,
which would happen in a Baz Luhrmann movie, but in a Baz Luhrmann movie it would somehow work. It does not work in this.
No,
film.
And it only happens like once, right?
Yeah,
and obviously a big one is The Lion King.
Yeah, The Lion King, I think, is soulless as well. Fucking terrible movie. I think it's just way boring, way less lively and colorful as the original. They make the lions look super realistic. For what, bro? It makes it so much less interesting as a story because you're not seeing the emotion on the characters. There's just nothing to that movie that improves upon anything whatsoever. It's completely damn near shot for shot, and it's just worse.
The thing is that it's the most unnecessary of the remakes because it's not live action. It's just another animated version of the movie. And I will say the visual effects are really good.
They are. They look like used for something that really makes them
exactly. It's kind of
taken.
It's done for granted in a way. Like they could be using these visual effects artists in like with like an original film, like use a better use of their time rather than just like remaking an entire movie with their mode of like creativity.
It also just devalues the original, and this is something that a lot of these films do. It's like, why does a movie need to be live action why is animation seen as such a inferior version when a lot of the time it can be superior for
Yeah.
telling these kinds of stories? Like, why is it that when we see the Lion King looking so realistic, we're like, oh man, like the animation is so much better because it looks more real? It's like, no, the animation is not more realistic does not equal better animation, you know, because this shit doesn't carry any of the life and spirit of the original in its visuals. It's very impressive how they made it look
Yeah.
very real, but it does not fit for this kind of
Yeah,
story.
it's just like you don't need it's the most unnecessary of all of them because you just don't need it, and there's no way to film real lions like doing all this stuff, so there's no real effort put into it. You're just kind of you truly are just copying and pasting everything.
Yeah, there's not even a new medium happening. It's still
Yeah.
animated. Pinocchio is also very bad in my opinion. Straight to Disney Plus.
Pinocchio, it's so weird that they got Robert Zemeckis to make a live action remake of Pinocchio when I feel like Robert Zemeckis likes doing like the mocap animated stuff, and like in a way he could have just done that with Pinocchio and it would have been better than trying to put like a live action Tom Hanks next to this fake looking Pinocchio. It just doesn't mesh well.
I actually wrote in my review for this movie on Letterboxd when it came out is that it's like a nothing experience, and it's Tom Hanks speaking to air for like I don't know however long the movie is, and it's like so many CGI characters surround him that you wonder why they didn't just animate the entire thing. And then I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, why? That's the kind of shit I hate. It's
Yeah.
just like the movie is already mostly in need of animation
Yeah.
for the characters to work. There is never a point
Yeah.
to make that movie in live action. It's like it's like they're just being completionists. They're
Yeah.
like, we just need to make
We
this
have
many.
this IP, so we have to remake it, even though it's not necessary. Like, none of these are necessary, to be honest. Like, they're not adding much to anything.
Right.
I mean, honestly, like, if you want to see a good Pinocchio movie, just watch the Guillermo del Toro one that came out the same year. I
True,
believe.
and it actually reinterprets things. It adds things. It feels more like an auteur made it.
Yeah.
It has more of a distinct style to it. Awesome movie, beautiful stop motion
Stop
animation.
motion's great.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And it's really, really cute and funny.
And well cast.
Yeah, and shocking.
I mean, I guess the newer one is well cast too. You've got the Robert Zemeckis one rather. You've got
Yeah.
Tom Hanks. You've got Joseph Gordon-Levitt as
Yeah.
Jiminy Cricket. I think it's Jacob Tremblay as Pinocchio. I can't remember if it's him or not.
I don't
It might be
remember.
someone I don't know. I'm sorry if I'm wrong about that. And then you have Cynthia Erivo as the Blue Fairy,
Yeah.
who has a beautiful voice and is a great actor as well. So it's like,
It's just like, yeah,
Damn.
Disney's just like throwing money at people and just being like, just make this thing happen. And they're
Yeah.
like, okay, fine.
I mean, I'm sure a lot of those actors were happy to work with Robert Zemeckis.
Yeah.
In some cases, again.
yeah.
In other cases, for the first time. Keegan-Michael Key was probably super excited about it. I think he plays
Yeah, he plays like
Honest
that.
John or
yeah,
whatever.
that Fox character.
Yeah.
Which is actually, I don't know why, but I really liked whenever his character was on because he looked really cool. But again, why wasn't the whole movie just looking like? I don't know. If you're gonna remake it, might as well just make it in that fashion rather than have a full ass like Tom Hanks.
Yeah,
in there.
but then what would be the point?
Exactly,
Lion King?
exactly. That's the thing. It's like you're losing all the detail when you're making it with real people.
Yeah. So who do we have to blame for this, Adrian? Who can we, send our regards to in terms of,
I think
trying to get this message out?
I think they started off with high hopes. They had like a bit of integrity. They were like, okay, we're gonna remake these movies, but we're gonna like do something different.
Make
that,
like sort of a sequel,
Yeah,
sort of
like,
a spin-off.
So it could have like some sort of legitimacy to why it's being made in the first place. And you kind of see that with like Joe Roth movies, like back in the day with Alice in Wonderland, Maleficent, the Snow White and the Huntsman. Like those were like remakes, but they were like changing it up with the style, and like it wasn't as comparable to what they were originally based off, and they were popular, so other producers and Disney itself was coming back in the fold and being like, okay, we could make money off of this. So like Jeffrey Silver did Beauty and the Beast and The Lion King.
And now
and then,
it's all downhill. I'm just kidding.
Kind of in a way.
Kind of, yeah.
Because you get producers like Mark Platt.
This is a big one, guys.
This is a big one. He did Cruella, Little Mermaid, the Snow White that just came out, the Snow White that just came out, the 2025 one, and even How to Train Your Dragon, which also just came out. And he's been doing this for a while, but not just for live action remakes, but for Broadway movies, Broadway adaptations. And they've been doing that for years now. Like, look at Les Miserables and Wicked and Cats and
Dear Evan Hansen, starring his son Ben Platt. We love that movie.
Yeah.
In a ironically, we do kind of love
so
that movie.
Funny.
Ironically, I saw it in Dolby.
I think we actually own the movie, don't we?
No, we've thought about it. We've been at
thought
Barnes & Noble together like, hey, you know what we need?
Like, we could movie night.
You know what we got over here? Anyway, these films, so, like, when it comes to Broadway to then becoming a movie, that has a little more integrity and legitimacy to it because that is a different medium, different experience. When you're just redoing something in live action, it was already a movie.
Yeah.
It was already a movie experience that you would watch, and so, like, you know, what's the point in that? It was already a great movie that everybody liked.
Yeah.
That was very successful.
That's the thing. It's like with these remakes of live action or these Broadway remakes, there is no creativity or originality anymore. It's very like one-dimensional. It's like, we have this thing, let's just put it out there again. Let's just like remake it, recopy it, and it's all very clean and industrial, and there's no texture to them. There's no creativity in its style or what it's trying to say. It's apolitical.
It's just kind of not. It doesn't feel like it's human. Is what you're saying.
It does have like this AI quality to it now.
Yeah. Something uncanny about it for sure. So, then you have something, a movie that I want to bring up, Mean Girls.
Yeah.
The interesting turn of events for Mean Girls is that it was a movie, then it was adapted into a stage musical, then that stage musical was adapted back by the same screenwriter, Tina Fey, into a movie musical of Mean Girls.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you can redo something in any sort of way and make it just different enough, they will do it. They will find a way to do it.
Yeah, and one of the biggest, not offenders, but one of the biggest like movies out there now that does that on such a great level is Wicked.
Wicked is almost a singular example of what Disney achieved, like we were talking about at the beginning of the episode, in terms of being this thing that was adapted from something that already existed. So, for example, we have the Wizard of Oz book.
Yeah.
Then there is a Wizard of Oz silent film.
Yeah.
Then there's the Wizard of Oz film that's popular, that everyone knows and has seen. And then that, based on that, was the Wicked book that was written. And then that book was taken into a stage musical. And that became, like Disney did with their properties, the most popular version of Wicked.
Yeah.
A lot of people like the Wicked book, of course, but the Wicked musical is like the thing that people think of when they think Wicked, I would say.
Yeah.
On a large scale. So then you make that musical, not the book, the musical, into a movie.
It's like a game of telephone with IP. It's like you're translating so many times that it becomes something completely different from what the original was.
Sure, and
But
I mean, in the case of Wicked, that is kind of a beautiful thing. Like,
yeah,
that is just how that's just how a lot of art and storytelling works. It all just kind of goes through different iterations, and everything's inspired by something. But what I think what we're getting at is just that I think those that are lucky enough to achieve the most iconography with that IP, then that just branches out. That people will they kind of stop there and they start
yeah,
just replicating that everywhere. It doesn't. It kind of stops the chain once it
yeah,
becomes popular enough because people tend to think, okay, well, now that it's super huge and makes a lot of money, this is just a money machine. We can just use this and remake it and repackage it and sell things based on it all the time. And it's almost like the improvisational creativity stops there. The yes and stops there. And
yeah.
they're instead just copy and paste.
Where this becomes bad is like if they were to remake Wicked like 15 years down the road. Like that's when it's like
It could happen.
it could happen, and that would be like the death of that franchise.
Yeah.
But we it is just interesting that the story of Wizard of Oz has gone through so many interpretations. Like even The Wiz is a really good like reinterpretation of that story, and you adapt it for like a black audience, and it's really good. And you have like really good music, and you really change up the style. And yeah, have you seen that movie?
No.
It's really good. Michael Jackson's in it.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. But it's interesting that story, that initial story from Frank L. Baum or
I
L.
believe so.
Frank Baum. So that's the author of the original book would have so many like stories to tell. Like even with Return of the Oz, Return to Oz.
And that's I think that might be my favorite
That
of
might be
all
my
of them.
favorite too. Like there's if you have a good enough like base, you could like tell a lot of stories off of it. That's why Star Wars is really good. Like if you
Yeah.
have a good enough base, you could like branch off and tell different original stories based in that universe, and I think that's a better way of going about doing these if you're going to be original but you still want to be a part of the IP. That's something you could do instead of just completely redoing the story itself.
Yeah, I mean, when something is so creative is invented that has such a distinct world, you should make that world feel bigger, not smaller.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, because then you always have the original, and then you have other stuff. But it's just the reliance on wanting to give out fan service and wanting to, give, I guess, the audience demand for things that they already know and like and are comfortable with, instead of original new stuff is really the problem.
Yeah.
Like, it feels like we're at a point where there is no endless game of telephone happening, which would be fine because then you're at least, you're adding your own spin to it. It's not that anymore. It feels as though we're getting instead just a point. We're just waiting for the point where it stops and it reaches peak popularity. And then everybody wants a piece of that instead. Everybody just wants to kind of thrive off that which is tried and true and not take a risk on spinning it into something new. It doesn't feel like we get a lot of that anymore.
When we do, it works. Like look at Andor. Like that's
Amazing.
Based off of a movie which was based off of a movie.
Yeah, that's a spin-off show to a prequel
spin-off.
Basically a spin-off that is also a prequel to a movie that came out in 1977 that is also, I mean, of course it's a huge franchise. But,
But like look at that, like how you could get that entire storyline from something that already exists. Like if people want to do that, they should do that more often rather than just these remakes. It's like you could just do that.
Yeah, and you could even say, "Oh, we don't need to fill out every little corner of the Star Wars universe. We don't need that. We need Andor more than anything right now.
Yeah.
Everyone needs to watch Andor and heed its words and its
Yeah.
themes.
Yeah, I feel like they've been using this MCU template for making these movies, and that's like a really big problem. Um, and I feel like there's so many ways to solve this issue. I think the biggest way we could save money, at least the companies could save money, is just by re-releasing the original movies.
This is something we talked about when we were conceiving this episode, because we recently saw Revenge of the Sith, which we also did an episode on when that re-released in theaters for the, 20th anniversary? Yes, 20th anniversary. And that sort of thing I find a lot better because, yeah, you're profiting off the same old shit, but people that never got to see it on the big screen can see it on the big screen. You can sell a popcorn bucket, which my dumbass will buy, and then you make money off of the original property again, and then you can hopefully use those resources in order to make more original films. And because you're not spending hundreds of millions of dollars to put a new remake out in order to get those profits, then you're getting, profits, but you're also saving profits, and then you can use all that to make a new movie. I know that makes too much sense, and they would rather cash in big on their, IPs, but it's like, if you cash in medium, then you can save a lot and still make the same thing.
Yeah, that's I was thinking about when
Welcome to accounting.
Yeah, right after watching Revenge, I was just like, we have to talk about this because, like, why aren't they just doing this? Why aren't they just re-releasing the movies that they already have? Re-release How to Train Your Dragon
in 40X.
In 40X, that would be amazing. Do that with Lilo and Stitch. Like, why aren't they just re-releasing what they already have instead of spending so much money on creating the movie again in an inferior way? Like, it doesn't make any sense. And that's why, again, I was like, George Lucas is a genius. He just re-releases his movies and they just make money. It's like an infinite money glitch, and nobody's using this.
But it's an infinite money glitch without infinite spending of resources and hiring of talent and all this shit. Like,
it's like, look, Pride and Prejudice just re-released, and look, like, so many people went out to watch that. Jaws is being re-released right now as we're talking about this.
Sometimes I re-release my TikToks from 2022. But it works. The ones that did well, they still do well. Go figure.
Yeah, like, but yeah, Jaws is being re-released for its 50th anniversary, and like they're showing it like on the water. Like, make a big deal. Like, we want to celebrate these movies. We don't want to remake them into worser versions of themselves.
It's hard to celebrate the movies when you're like, God, this is so much worse than the original movie.
Yeah, it's like, if
you can make this bad.
Obviously, you see the potential in the original movie, so that you're like, okay, we want to remake it, but by doing that, you're lessering the impact of the original film.
I mean, you're just fitting a square peg into a round hole in some of these cases. Like I said, it's taking something that was conceived for a specific medium of filmmaking, animation, and then you're trying to fit it into live action. Of course it's going to look wonky in places. Of course it's not going to be as easy as making the animated... Well, I don't want to say as easy, but you know what I mean, like easy on the... easy in the terms of experience. Like, it's not as easy to like these movies because you're seeing just how inferior they look compared to the original. And it's honestly... I don't blame the talent directly involved with the films because they're doing their best to make it work with the project that they're given. It's like it's not gonna just magically work out when it's not supposed to be that way.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem is that it's the producers and the studios who are making these movies, not the filmmakers, like the directors and the writers themselves. It's the producers, or just the studios being like, okay, we need this Hercules remake. Guy Ritchie, do it. Make it. And Guy Ritchie just...
Yeah, like Aladdin made a fuck ton of money to do this one too.
Him being just like a director for hire in that case, he's just like, okay, we'll just make it happen. But it's a lot different when you have writers and directors who really love this IP and these ideas, who really have a new version, an idea of this movie that they want to remake. For instance, Ocean's 11 is like the Soderbergh Ocean's 11 is a remake of obviously the one that came out in the 60s with why am I forgetting who's in it? Frank Sinatra and the Rat Pack. Now that original movie was fine, but it's not great. But they loved that movie so much, and they loved the iconography of that film, that when they remade it, they made it better because of their passion for it, and the fact that they wanted to tell a cooler, more stylish story. And if you have passionate filmmakers who want to remake and tell a story that they like, and they could feel like they could add something new to it, then you're getting a really good remake.
For example, Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio.
Exactly.
That is a perfect example.
Like, have them do that instead of just picking out random filmmakers that are just kind of there for hire and being like, make this movie, do whatever, just make sure it's remade and it looks like our brand.
Another example of a remake from someone who is passionate about the original and works towards their filmmaking sensibilities, Nosferatu by Robert Eggers last year. One of the best films of last year, in my opinion. It's like, of course that guy needed to make that, because that story's been around for over a century.
It's a long time.
Well over a century. But,
just if the studios need to trust their filmmakers, make the movies that they want to make. They're the ones being creative. If you try to force them to make something that they don't want to make, it's not going to be good.
Yeah.
They just need to trust their filmmakers. How hard is that? They feel like if, they're going to be too transgressive or something, and they'll, shun people, or...
They just have a very specific way they want it done, I guess, and it's because they're making so much money, there's no way to really prove it wrong.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's no... you need Tom Cruise to go in there, into the office, and be like, I need you guys to trust me one last time.
We're living in the entity's reality.
No, I actually think that's what not to get off topic, but that scene in that latest Mission Impossible movie, if you guys have seen it, it's not a spoiler, it's very early in the movie, but it's that is, I think, what's going on in that scene. It's basically a movie star or producer like Tom Cruise saying, let me make something that hasn't been done before. Let me take a risk. Let me do something that you're not sure is going to succeed, because that is the nature of human creativity. That is the difference between the heroes and the villains. The villains being AI, which doesn't create anything. It just repurposes, repackages, and puts out amalgamations of things we've already seen. Whereas someone creative is going to make something new, and it requires trust. It's an act of faith, which requires, inherently doubt, but also trust that we can do something and make something great out of it. We're going to fail sometimes, but then, 20 years down the line, you get people, hey, remember that movie? It didn't make any money. It was really good.
Yeah, we need to make these changes where we're not making these $100-200 million movies and just putting everything on the line for these algorithmic based stories and
assembly line.
And put it into something more risky and creative for $20 million. And if you put more of those movies out, they're bound to be more successful than trying to risk it all on this $200 million movie. And even if it's not successful, you're putting out so much that one of them's gonna work. If you have conviction in the filmmakers that you're hiring, and you're putting your trust and your money with, then they're gonna put something interesting out there. If you believe in them, you should believe in them. Don't just hire them just to hire them.
Especially because Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio or Robert Eggers' Nosferatu still have the words Nosferatu and Pinocchio in them.
Yeah.
They're gonna. That's enough. You're
Yeah.
gonna get people. If it was Dean Fleischer Camp's Lilo and Stitch, and he got to make his whole new interpretation of it that was like all completely his and like through his style, some like minimalist Lilo
Yeah.
and Stitch masterpiece. I don't fucking know, and maybe that's not the story for him, but that's the point.
Yeah. It's
I'm
like,
just saying it would still have the words Lilo and Stitch in the title,
yeah.
and I think it would still draw basically the same thing, because if you can get a worse version of that story to succeed on iconography and name alone, then why not just do something riskier with it and make a weirder, more abstract, more auteur-driven version of those stories if you really insist on remaking them?
Yeah. Like, I don't know. It's very just cookie cutter, like whatever movies. Like Mark Webb's like Snow White. What makes it a Mark Webb movie? Like what's he gonna add to it? What?
Yeah, I can't tell you. Actually, while we're on the topic of human creativity and how it requires a bit of doubt, I actually think my favorite part of that film might be Gal Gadot's performance.
I haven't seen it, but I hear that it's almost like a so bad she's good.
I don't think it's a so bad she's... I guess you could say it's a so bad she's good, but what I mean is that everything in the movie feels algorithmically bland and boring, like a live-action remake usually is, except for Rachel Zegler. She is great, but again, she's, in a script and a film that doesn't really do anything interesting.
Yeah.
But Gal Gadot is like... she's at least like actually like human, like bad in a human way. Like when I watch her performance, I'm like, she's trying some stuff. It's not working, but I can tell she's trying some stuff.
It's so the human era is like just coming out of this like computerized like,
right. It's like
film.
but you're not even doing it right. Like they're trying to get you to just kind of, but you're adding a humanity to it through not doing it well.
Yeah.
I'm not to like I think that is more magnetic to me in terms of watching that movie, because when you're surrounded by all this stuff that's just so bland, she stands out.
Yeah.
She stands out as being bad in the movie, but it's like you're at least trying and failing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The rest of this shit just feels lazy. They didn't try at all. I can't even fucking get mad, because I feel like if they had tried, they would have made something actually okay. But like, she's given it her all, and it's not landing at all.
Yeah.
And I kind of enjoy it.
I kind of want to see
I
it
kind of
now,
admire
just to see like what she does in that movie, because I've heard like she's not good in it at all, but she's at least interesting.
Every time she was on screen, I got excited. Every time she came back, I literally... She sings a song in the movie. My jaw was agape during that whole scene.
But yeah, with all these remakes, there's still more coming out.
Let's look at the dark future that lies ahead of us.
We like I mentioned earlier, there's a Guy Ritchie Hercules movie coming out. How do you feel about that?
Well, Hercules, I don't know if you know this, that was my sister's favorite film growing up, period. I know I mentioned Aladdin earlier. That's the only... I think I might have seen Aladdin more, but that one is definitely in the conversation because she loves Hercules. I think she still loves Hercules, but like when we were younger, and that was one I think that I like a little more than Aladdin. So yeah, I love the Hercules story. I can't wait for them to fuck it up.
Yeah, Hercules was one of those ones that I did see a lot as a kid, and I really liked as well.
I really don't want to see CGI Phil.
Yeah, I
feel like you could do a practical Phil.
You could probably do a practical Phil, but I just don't... Honestly, I feel like Hercules is a better movie for Guy Ritchie than Aladdin was. I think he could pull more of his Guy Ritchie-isms to work with Hercules than I think it did with Aladdin. But then again, I don't know. At this point, he is kind of like just the director for hire for Disney. But we'll see. I really have no like.
I have no expectations. I don't think it'll be good. But I mean, we'll see what it looks like.
You know what's crazy? That they're doing a Moana live action remake already
with the same main two actors in it.
Yeah.
And I don't want to see that.
I can't believe that they're already doing... Like, the
It's
first
9
one
years
came
old.
out 9 years ago?
Yeah.
They... Barely a decade, and they're already like, we needed a live-action version of this.
I was talking to one of our friends the other day and talking about how we were going to do this episode, and he was like, it's only a matter of time until they do Frozen. I think that that's true. I haven't seen any confirmation, but I do believe that Frozen would happen eventually.
Yeah,
because that was extremely popular when it came out.
Yeah, and, I mean, they're doing a Tangled one, and Tangled and Frozen, I feel like...
They came out, like, right around the same time.
Yeah, and they're, like, in the same universe, I guess. Ooh.
Oh, shit. Don't say that.
Ooh, a shared universe live action?
No,
oh, my goodness.
Oh.
I'm just
going to get Robert Downey Jr. to play the villain.
But, yeah, I mean... So we have Tangled, we have Hunchback of Notre Dame, I guess.
Supposedly, yes.
Robin Hood,
supposedly. Aristocats, supposedly.
Yeah. The thing about Robin Hood is there's so many adaptations of that one. I don't know why we continue to remake Robin. Like, I guess it's cool that it's a story about a guy who steals from the rich and gives to the poor. It's a constant theme that I think people like to see in films, but like...
I think they should make it completely... Disney's not going to do this. They're probably going to CGI animate a fox and then call it a live-action remake. It's going to be really annoying. But I think that they should actually make a Robin Hood movie that's like a modern heist film where it's like...
Like just a contemporary heist film?
It's like an actual guy that lives in like New York or something, and he steals crypto and he like
gives to everybody,
and he finds a way to give it to people, or he rigs the lottery, like a modern take on it where he finds ways to steal from the billionaires, and you could set it in modern day America, and I think that would be a pretty. I think that would be a story people would like to see right now.
Yeah,
just had that idea,
but and that's the thing. That could be something that a studio could put out and could be kind of interesting, but they won't because it's too risky, it's too new, it's not like the Robin Hood you're used to. And as if those even work out. Like, I feel like the last 3 iterations of Robin Hood have failed in some way.
I never saw that 2019 one with Taron Egerton.
It was bad.
I never saw it.
It was not good at all.
There's also, obviously, How to Train Your Dragon 2. We mentioned that one. And supposedly a Cruella 2, which I'm actually interested in a little bit because Cruella wasn't that bad.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people...
He was one of those ones that... I think it was the most recent... maybe the most recent one of the, like, new interpretation kind of spin-off-y ones like Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people had pretty positive takes on it, and I haven't seen it, but I hear good things about it.
I own it if you want to watch it.
Yeah,
I don't know if I own it or I gave it to my girlfriend. Whatever.
She could bring it back.
Yeah.
Well, I have Disney Plus, so I guess I could see it through that. Anyway, that's kind of our thing on these remakes and these what studios are doing. We want them to change it up a bit, though. We don't want to see the same stuff over and over again.
I would like to say that if you agree with our convictions about this, I know that these are not really hot takes, but this is something that we wanted to put out there just in light of these new films coming out and give our kind of dissection of like this kind of corner of film production that's happening and like what's going on with these remakes. So if you share any of these convictions, if you feel like we kind of hit the mark with some stuff, or if you don't, leave us a comment. Follow us here, follow us on other platforms. We post episodes every Monday, and it's a lot of fun. We talk about a lot of different things. I feel like this is kind of more in line with our kind of concept for the show, which is really going into like the industry and kind of breaking down like all the talent involved and what's going on, giving kind of a scientific reason for what's going on as best we can.
A little bit of a personal essay on like what's happening.
Yeah.
But yeah, let us know what your favorite live action remake is and what your least favorite live action remake is.
Yeah, which one offended you the most? And also, what is your favorite original Disney 2D animated film?
Yeah.
Before they fucked it up.
When I was a kid, I always liked Tarzan.
I love Tarzan.
Again, is an original because it's based off of the book or the series.
I adore Tarzan. I would say, obviously I mentioned Aladdin, Hercules, but for me, Mulan. Mulan is my favorite at the moment.
But yeah, that's
those bastards. Anyway, sorry. But yeah, that's the show. Thank you for listening. I've been Peyton.
And I've been Adryon.
And we'll see you next time on the Apple Box.